you want to elaborate a little more on the role of your helpers?
Um, sure. As a child, I would be, um, you know, I don't know if it was my energetic sensing or helpers on the other side, but I'd come walking up the house, and the home I grew up in, and I would be told, "Don't go inside,"
Mm-hmm.
and so I would leave. And then a little while later, they'd say, "Okay, it's okay to go back now." Then I'd go back. So I felt like I had either, my own expanded sensing or someone else was guiding me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know really which it is, whether I was just having conversations with myself or conversations with other beings that weren't in physical form. And so that's kind of continued for me. I mean, especially over the last, well, starting in around 96, I began doing some automatic writing,
Mm-hmm.
and I started getting some really good information in terms of how I needed to change in order to really live the life I came here to live. So
Mm-hmm.
these beings that were bringing thoughts into words that I was writing, explained that they were my guides in this life and that they were here to assist me to live my soul's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had resistance to them, a lot of resistance to them initially, but then over a course of time, I began doing the things that they suggested, and my life began changing. And every time I did the things they suggested, my life changed in really good ways. So that pretty much set me on that path of listening. And I wouldn't do something that just made no sense to me whatsoever, but I would, or felt like it could be injurious. But they never suggested those things. They just suggested other ways I could look at something. Well, you could look at it like that, or you might look at it like this. And then I would look at things differently or think about things differently, and then things would change. So I think through these guides, I really came to realize that a lot of my experience was based on my own perception. And that with this guidance, I could begin perceiving things differently and then experience them differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so that began happening, and that really began happening a lot in about 96.
Mm-hmm.
So about 18 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And then most recently, I've had a variety of different guidance come in relative to healing. And so I've begun to not only listen to guidance that seems to come from other realms in terms of how I can assist people, but I've also begun to listen more and more to the guides of those people. So when I'm working with somebody, I'll be listening and being told like where to put my hands and what to do. And so I really have gotten to the place where I don't think much at all when I'm working with people. I just pretty much do what I'm told.
Right.
And then these things happen. And people give me this positive feedback on what happened for them. And I can feel things happening. I'm energetically aware of things and how they change. But I would try to think through processes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I should do this next, then I should do that next, and I'd be more in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I'm more in my heart
Mm-hmm.
and more in my body.
Right.
And more in a receptive
Mm-hmm.
mode. So when I'm working, I'm actually receiving more than I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
The doing is more of just being a physical presence while another person changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very aware that I'm not really doing anything to create change for people, but it seems like a lot of change is happening for people,
Yeah.
with me seeming to do less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's fascinating.
Yes, it is.
And I
Yeah.
like the direction,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it's such a pleasant direction
Mm-hmm.
because more seems to be changing for people now than ever has before, and I'm doing less and less.
Mm-hmm.
So that relationship between I'm the doer and then the person being done to has really shifted to I'm the support system and they're the doer.
Right.
And I'm just supporting them doing whatever it is they're doing.
Right.
And then we kind of discover what that is in the course of working together.
Mm-hmm.
And so the less I do, the more seems to happen.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good. And how it couldn't really be any other way if you're a helper, right? It means that you're not only helping people that come to you, but also you're being helped, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're being
I'm a
helped.
servant.
You're a
you know,
servant, right?
I'm a servant of the oneness. That's what
Mhm.
I feel like. I feel like I'm serving the larger field
Mm-hmm.
by assisting people to discover they're part of that larger field.
Right.
And when they let go of their concern and worry and separate feeling of separations from the world, and they begin to let go of that and they begin to connect to something larger, things seem to start working out for them. So I feel, you know, it was interesting because the original person who came upon or created or made up or discovered or whatever chiropractic, his name was D.D. Palmer, and you know the first adjustment was supposedly in 1895,
Mm.
and so it's maybe 120 years old or so,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote a lot about what he was observing changing people. He documented things quite well. And before that, he was, I think, a magnetic healer,
Mm.
which I don't really know what that means. You
Mhm.
know, healing with magnets. I know we're in an electromagnetic field, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know quite what he was doing with magnets. I haven't read that part of it. But he did say in one of his early books that the purpose of chiropractic is to unite man the physical with man the spiritual. And to me, that's what I feel like I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really assisting people to let go of who they're not
Right.
and discover who they are
Right.
just by being present with them. And through that presence, they discover their own presence.
Mm-hmm.
And they are just part of something quite large.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, you've been on about an hour. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel good.
Yeah.
I'm always, of course, curious of my numbers. So there's this little thing on the machine where it shows you how much of the energy coming in that the body's receiving and
Mhm.
working with. And so the higher the number of the energy coming in and the lower the number you have kind of shows how well you're integrating those energies.
Mhm.
And I've only been able to get my number down to 2, and in the past few weeks I've been kind of a little bit of my competitive nature has
Right.
risen up. Like
Right.
I want those lower numbers. So I have a tendency to want to look over and see how am I doing based on the colored lights on the machine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, you're doing okay. You're doing okay. Shows
Yeah,
that
I
you're
feel
very,
okay.
you're very stable today. Very
Mhm.
equal.
Mhm. I feel very balanced,
Right.
very grounded, very present. You know, not kind of rah happy.
Mm-hmm.
More of a feeling of deep contentment.
Yes.
Like I'm just content. I'm contemplative.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a state that I would more often have gotten to in the past through meditation.
Right.
You know, I'd meditate for a while and I'd get into this state.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that I can just be on the machine and get into this state and have conversations and, but really be in that state of, I don't know if it's, a deeper brain wave, if I'm going into a more meditative brain wave state through the machine, but it definitely feels like when I used to meditate quite a bit, it feels like that state I would get into in meditation, kind of a contemplative state.
Right.
And a mindfulness, I'm aware of what's going on with my physical body. And I notice that there's been a great decrease of tension in my chest. Excuse me. And even though I wasn't feeling tense when I came in, as the energy started to build, then I was aware of this tightness.
Right.
And now I'm aware that that's lessened. And if I were to put a number on it, I'd say it's lessened by half. And so, yeah, I feel good on the machine, and I feel like really kind of brain balanced, emotionally balanced. Yeah, this has been a really lovely few days. I've been, for the last 2 months, so about the time we've been working together, I've been painting my house, which is 2-story on 2 sides and 1-story on 2 sides. And I've been painting it with a paintbrush. So that really slow, methodical painting, and you just don't get very far very fast.
Right.
And I was realizing how much I was enjoying that process. Just being really present with a small section of wood and the detail of it, and going down, and then eventually a whole wall was done.
Right.
But it wasn't like, oh, I need to get this done.
Right.
It was like, wow, I'm really enjoying doing this.
Right.
Even when I was doing it on top of the ladder, I was really enjoying the detail of it. Without, kind of like, I would say my nature might have been described as obsessive compulsive. I would say it definitely would have been described as obsessive compulsive. Like I couldn't let someone else paint in a house that I had because it wouldn't be good enough. I was so detailed in that way. And I would say I'm maybe more detailed in that way. I'm more aware of how smooth I want the paint and how I want to have a particular look, but I'm not obsessed. I just don't have any feelings about it. I like it looking a particular way, so it's looking that way. But it's not like it has to look that way or I'll be unhappy or whatever, you know? It's not that. So that's a big change too.
That's great.
Yeah, a lot of relaxation. A lot of relaxation that I've not found doing much of anything. But it's just coming. That feeling of self-comfort, self-satisfaction, even though I'm not satisfied with any particular thing about self.
Right.
I'm just satisfied with self.
Right.
And I would say that would be a spiritual part of my spiritual experience.
Yes.
Is this self-acceptance.
Right.
And this non-worry.
Right.
Like I used, really I literally worried about everything. Everything. I could sleep well because I'd be spent at the end of the day, and there was nothing left in the tank. So I would crash and I would regenerate well, but I'd wake up the next day kind of in fight or flight, and I remodeled 7 houses over a period of 30 some years. So that was pretty continuous. Like every 4 years I was into a new house and doing it while working full time and raising 3 kids. So you could say that I was fairly high, probably, on some levels, type A.
Yeah.
With that kind
Yeah.
of perfectionist standard,
Mm-hmm.
and then this continual movement.
Mm-hmm.
I think that came out of fight or flight, and now I just enjoy everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a panic reaction. It's just like, okay, now I can enjoy this.
That's great.
Now I can enjoy that. So yeah, this has been a good interview because really sometimes unless you talk about it, you don't realize.
Right.
I think talking about it helps you to realize,
Mm-hmm.
You've come from here to here.
Right.
And that's only been 9 weeks.
Right. Right. Well, good. Let's end this interview then.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
great. Thanks.
You're welcome.